Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Expansion, straight out of EXPCON. We're going to flip things around a bit and share a recording of one of our big agents out of Canada, Denise Mai, interviewing me. This was a live recording of our discussion on the main stage at EXPCON, so the audio may sound a bit off at times. However, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks everyone. All right. So Denise Mai she's going to ask me some questions, but Denise is a really amazing agent out of Vancouver, Canada, and so met her through John Sai. I think John attracted you to EXP, and she actually represented my youngest daughter, Katie, in the purchase of real estate in downtown Vancouver. So it was pretty cool.
Yes, thank you so much, Glenn. You have just been an amazing supporter of me and being here at EXP. It's been such an amazing experience from the start. It's been 3 years, but it feels like it's gone by like that. And so today I have some questions that I've come up with because I really want to find out what makes you, you. So I'm going to get started with the very first question. How did your childhood upbringing make you who you are today?
Wow, so my dad was an entrepreneur. He actually built a granola business. He was actually, when I was born, I was born in single-wide manufactured home in northern Alberta, north of Edmonton. I hear some Albertan or Canadian contingents out there, we moved from northern Alberta, Peace River, to the lower mainland of BC, and then they got into the granola manufacturing business. So I got to see, we went from what I call rags to riches, and then my dad unfortunately lost everything because of the oil crash in 1980, so we went from rags to riches to sort of almost rags again. But I really enjoyed the entrepreneurial journey, and I got introduced to a lot of people as I was growing up that were in business, etc. So I was, from a young age, was reading books like, my dad was a good Dale Carnegie instructor, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and he used to bring, they did the songs, and so I was always hearing the songs and singing the songs with my dad. So a lot of this entrepreneurial stuff came really from my childhood.
That's amazing. And what was the lowest point in your life, and how would you say you overcame it?
Lowest point. So entrepreneurs, and you heard Naveen talk about the ups and downs. The heartbeat. Entrepreneurship is not all ups. You're out there trying to build something, and you've got a lot of people that maybe invested in you or what have you to sort of do your different businesses. But I remember in about 96, 97, I was doing internet marketing really early on, and we were doing bulk email. I was a spammer, I will admit it. And the backbones of the internet actually were cutting off anybody who was sending bulk email, and that was actually a big. I was at the time I was making $15,000 a month in my PJs, and I say my PJs because some days I didn't get out of my PJs, and it was pretty cool until the backbone got cut, and for a while I literally, for a few days, I felt like weeks, I literally didn't want to get out of bed because like I had investors that invested in this and all the other stuff, and it all came cratering down. So that was probably I would say my lowest point. And then I literally had to ask the question if I wanted to go get a job or continue to be an entrepreneur. I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go to the safety of a job. And then I remember what my dad told me years before, which is that if you take a job, that's the most you'll ever make. And as an entrepreneur, there's unlimited potential. So I went back to the unlimited potential side of the equation.
And I'd say that was a great decision.
Yeah, it's working.
Yes, and that's why we're all here today, right, everyone? Do you have any regrets in life? And if yes, Why?
Yeah, well, everybody has regrets. I definitely have regrets. There's stuff that even today when I think about them, they still sort of internally embarrass me. So, by the way, I'm not going to share those. But you know, the reality is that you know, I think as you know, going through life, there are things that you do consciously, unconsciously. You go with the crowd, whatever, and then you come to regret some of those decisions because you're going, you weren't like emotionally mature enough to at that point in life. I feel like that's just part of the journey. I feel like the nice thing about being 55 years old is I'm not doing a lot of stuff that I'm going to regret in the future.
No, absolutely, and I'm sure we all have some regrets, but we all learn from them, so that's the most amazing thing. So success means different things to different people. What does success mean to you, Glenn?
Success for me is the choice you make the moment you wake up in the morning. It's, you know, I think about success as somewhat of a mindset piece rather than something that's sort of outwardly, we think about, in some cases, we think about success as being a large amount of wealth and conspicuous consumption, and that's sort of what's out there. I think about success as that it's, do you feel good about what you're bringing forth in the world? And if you do, then you're successful. Because it really doesn't matter what other people think. It really it matters what you think. And to some extent, you can even go one level sort of meta than that. It's really about being at peace with what is, and that's where success starts from. So for me, it's about really being centered and then knowing that where you're at, there's always unlimited possibilities from that point. And so that for me, it's just success really starts as a mindset, and then eventually gets expressed in other ways.
What a great reminder. Just all begins with mindsets. And so what has surprised you the most about becoming the founder of EXP, would you say?
Well, how big it got. I see Rob here on the front row. I mean, I remember the day that Rob joined us, and he really brought an entirely different focus to the way the company's grown. And that was a pivotal day, and obviously Brent Gove and many other people that have come along as well. But I didn't expect us to be 85,000 agents at this point in time, the single largest real estate brokerage in the world, and I think woo! Let's give our hand, yeah. I also think it would have been arrogant to think that when we started EXP as well, because we've all started businesses and they all look great on paper, and we always want to talk about who we're going to be as if it is in the present. I mean, that's part of sort of actualizing something, but to actually see it really happen, and it's so rare. I mean, I feel very very blessed, but also very lucky. The timing of things came together at exactly the right time. I mean, being a technology guy, and then we had a housing market that crashed, and we had high-speed internet had shown up by 2009. There were a number of things that came together, and I'd had experience in some different, we'll say, network marketing companies, which I really enjoyed and were very formative. So there were just a number of things that just kind of came together. And then since then, obviously, the amazing team that we've built is, now I'm more just a person that the team asks from a vision perspective. What do I think about this? What do I think about that? Now it's like we've got well over 2,000 team behind the scenes helping make this work for the 85,000 agents and brokers. And so now it's literally how well it's running without me having to be day to day. I had to. By the way, I'm enjoying the heck out of it, but I had to jump into Success, which I'm now acting as the CEO of success. I have the title, but now I'm actually doing the work of the CEO. But I love it because I'm being able to be an entrepreneur again, which I love to be able to roll my sleeves up and do those things as well. So getting to really sort of do that. And even there, we've got a great team. And so even there, I'm probably still more just visioning more than actually doing. So I'm not geeking out, I'm not building funnels. You know, I'm sitting in front of the camera doing some video stuff, but we've got an amazing team there as well. So.
And I know everyone in this room is incredibly grateful that you've built this company, but I was always curious, what would you be doing if you weren't building EXP?
Well, I'd be building something else. I mean, you know, I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I actually love being an entrepreneur. For me, whether, you know, obviously, we all want things to be successful, but as an entrepreneur, I think to some extent it's less about the success of the thing than it is the creating of the thing. So the creation process is in itself a big part of the reward, and so that's why I'm focusing on success, is because there's a creation piece, and so there's you know, figuring out how that artistic stuff comes together. And part of the art is the financial portion of it, but it's figuring out, you know, how it all fits together and how it all pieces together and how it then can impact people's lives.
And what would you say some of your greatest gifts have you received in your life, and how do they make you who you are today?
So, you know, I probably, you know, just being around positive people who gave me positive insights into things. So, you know, I just shared this same thought with somebody the other day. You know, they were struggling as an entrepreneur and they're worried about financial stuff and some debt and some other things. I said, well, the nice thing, and this is advice that was given to me, is that being in debt, you know, even if something happens, the debtors can't eat you and they can't put you in jail. So, you know, the nice thing about the free enterprise system, especially the way it's set up here in the United States, is that there's always a do-over. And so, you know, just being around, you know, minds that think creatively, I think that's been the greatest gift, and then that's sort of allowed me to be creative in my own right. So.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, round of applause. And I know a lot of us have to make difficult decisions in our lives, and I'm sure you have as well.
None.
And what would you say was one of the most difficult decisions you've ever had to make to pursue your dream or goal?
You know, I think it comes down to, you know, we tend to, you know, sacrifice. I talked about with Naveen. You know, we sometimes sacrifice our health and other things, and so figuring out, you know, priorities, I think is a big portion of it. And I think sometimes we do, you know, have to put things on the side in order to pursue this over here. And so there's always that trade-off. There's only so many hours in the day, and so how do you make that trade-off? And so those become those difficult decisions, because sometimes something's really is working. I'll give you an example, just the EXP side. In 2009, when we launched EXP, we at the same time we actually had a team structure model that we actually had figured out how to scale. By the way, I'd love to do a mastermind if anybody wants to go over some unique ways of scaling a team. But we had actually built a team structure that we thought could get to hundreds, if not thousands, of agents, and it would actually sort of self-develop. And it was getting traction. We were actually getting good traction in a couple markets where it looked like we could have grown to hundreds of agents, and the team structure was structured in such a way. But in order to actually do the EXP model, which I believed in even more, we had to take that model and say, we're not doing that model. Even though we were getting traction, we said, we're going to make an entire pivot because we want to provide a platform for teams and agents to do something else. And so I think the difficult decisions, that was one, but there's tons of difficult decisions that, when you have to let people go, those are difficult decisions. And so there's been different ones along the way, and they're just part of the journey. But the worst decision is no decision.
No, absolutely. Yes, making decisions right away. And so I know we all get advice from so many people. What would you say, what's the number one piece of advice that you've received that continuously makes an impact in how you face the day every day?
I'm not sure it came from a person, even though I've had some great mentors over the years. One of my mentors passed a few years ago. His name was Jerry Sahlberg, and he was an engineer. He used to work for the Australian billionaire Kerry Packer, and so I got a lot of really unique stories from him. But and a lot of things that really did impact me, just in the way that I sort of approached business and different things. But the one phrase that always resonates with me is the Zig Ziglar quote. You can get anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And for me, that's been the driver. And so as long as I always make it about other people, then the rest of it works out. It doesn't matter what happens, you just make it about other people. And so I always pay it forward. It doesn't matter whether they're, and some of you that are with EXP will know this before you were with EXP. If you and I corresponded, I was pouring into you whether you were at EXP or not. That's my MO, is to always pay it forward and recognize that it's not about the individual in front of you right now, it's about the people who will be attracted from continually sort of being willing to pay it forward.
Wonderful. And I know we're running out of time, and I want to give you one last question because we are heading into winter. But how do you keep yourself positively inspired during overwhelming times in your life?
We said winter, so I'm now in Arizona in the winter, so that kind of helps. It's just getting around positive people. The nice thing about us as people is that we can actually reorganize who we're around. I even think about our social feeds. I have reorganized my social feeds. I've got rid of the toxic stuff, and I've added people and pages and things that provide positive influence. Because there's a lot of negativity, obviously, in the world. The reason why newspapers exist is to sell newspapers, and the way to sell newspapers is to actually put stuff that basically says you're going to die, or you're going to get sick, or somebody you know is going to get hurt, or whatever. And that's what generates readership. It's also another reason why I'm really excited about owning Success Magazine as an organization, because it's actually a positive outlet message. We've been sending it out for years, even before we owned it, because it's one of those things that for me was a big piece of my life, of staying positive and just making sure that I'm always surrounding myself with positive content. My guess is we really probably need 5+ things of positive feedback just to offset one negative piece of information. But unfortunately, we generally in the media get 5 negative things for every 1 positive thing. So figuring out how to just make sure that we're feeding our mind so we're not stressed, so we are energized, so we think in possibilities, so we think in abundance, just make sure that you're feeding your mind with great content.
Amazing, Glenn. Wow, let's give Glenn a hand.
Awesome.
What an honor. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
really
thank you.
It.
It's been an honor to be up here and in front of everyone just to ask you some questions, and thank you. Thank you
awesome.
again.
Good stuff. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.